In the first game of the series, T1's BP ban pick phase was disastrous. After their first 3 picks, my friends and I already felt like they were in serious trouble. The main issue stemmed from how both teams approached the BP phase, where their drafts diverged significantly. Let's start with T1's decision to ban Kai'Sa while on the blue side. Wasn't Xayah still a viable option? Why ban Kai'Sa? The reason lies in the inherent challenges of being on the blue side. In this case, if T1 planned to pick a marksman in their second or third rotation, no matter how they approached it, they'd run into a game of paper, scissors in terms of counter picks. For example, imagine T1 locked in Aphelios and Renekton. Would BLG still have picked Kai'Sa to counter them? Personally, I think it's unlikely, but all this is theoretical and just provides some food for thought. Ultimately, what matters is how this specific game played out. BLG's third ban was pivotal. They cleverly banned Varus. Their thought process was similar to how T1 banned Nico in Game 3 of this series. Initially, T1 banned Kalista to put BLG in a tough spot, hoping that if BLG insisted on banning Aphelios, T1 could secure Skarner in return. From T1's perspective, Ashe and Varus could hold their ground against each other. However, BLG's response was brilliant. By banning Varus, they raised Ashe's draft priority but simultaneously left a massively OP Aphelios open, forcing T1 to choose. With 3 top-tier champions available, Red side gained the upper hand in draft strategy. For most teams, Aphelios would undoubtedly be valued above Ashe and Skarner. However, T1's Aphelios has historically been hit or miss, especially when played by Zeus. Unless Zeus is the one piloting Aphelios, their performance with this champion is generally underwhelming. While on paper T1 didn't lose outright in the first draft rotation, BLG effectively gained the upper hand by the second rotation. T1's misunderstanding of how to build around Aphelios ultimately led them astray. The optimal draft would have been to lock in Lux in order to provide AP damage. One of the biggest weaknesses of an Aphelios-centered comp is its lack of AP. If they were intent on running Gunnar in the bot lane, they should have paired him with Ziggs. Instead, T1 opted for Gnar and Sejuani. While Sejuani wasn't necessarily a bad pick, Gnar was a questionable choice. I understand that they banned Jax prioritizing Gnar, but the resulting draft was significantly flowed. This composition would inevitably suffer from a lack of AP damage. On the other hand, BLG immediately capitalized on this by securing Skarner during their second rotation. Against a team with a pure tank, balancing AP and AD damage is crucial. Otherwise, an all-AD composition becomes utterly ineffective against items like plated steel caps. Adding to the problem, Lux would have been an effective counter against Ashe. But by this point, T1's draft was a complete mess. Knight then rounded it off by picking Sylas, stealing 3 critical ultimates. By this point, it was nearly impossible for T1 to win unless their bot lane pulled off something miraculous. After BLG banned Ziggs and Jhin, the only AP champion that could fit into T1's comp was Zeri. However, given the way T1 drafted, there was no room to slot her in. As the team comp heavily relied on scaling, they were essentially sitting ducks waiting to be crushed. Within their own understanding of the game, Ashe paired with supports like Renata, Glass, or Rakan is very strong. But in the end, they handed Lux over to BLG, creating a truly disastrous draft. To salvage their bot lane, T1 resorted to picking Caitlyn and Braum, hoping to dominate the early game. However, in this kind of composition, even a single mistake in the bot lane could spell disaster, and that's exactly what happened. The game started with a major bot lane misstep, and from there T1 never recovered. Not only did T1's BP fail them, but their early game execution was also catastrophic. Sylas started with E to attempt a cheeky play, scouting the river bush and spotting Gumayusi's Caitlyn standing still. This prompted BLG to make a bold decision. They circled around to gank bot. Even if Sylas delayed his engage, BLG's bot lane of Ashe and Braum could provide timely backup. The result, Caitlyn was caught off guard, and Guma hesitated to burn flash until it was too late. Had he flashed earlier, there might have been a slight chance to stabilize the lane. But by delaying, he ended up giving Ashe the first blood. Remember, Caitlyn was picked specifically for lane dominance. Losing first blood at level 1 and burning flash put T1's bot lane in an unplayable position. To make matters worse, Ashe secured a longsword with her first recall. At this point, I was already contemplating switching over to play some Pokemon cards with my friends. Without flash, Caitlyn couldn't exert any pressure in lanes, especially with Ashe's item lead. Combined with a summoner spell disadvantage, there were no opportunities for T1 to create plays in bot lane. The other lanes fared no better. In mid lane, Faker's Yasuo was outmatched by Sylas. Faker's Qs missed repeatedly due to Sylas's constant side-stepping. Sylas's ability to perfectly time his shields made trades almost impossible for Yasuo. Under this kind of pressure, Yasuo couldn't hold his own, and the lane snowballed in favor of BLG. Top lane was no better. Gnar struggled against Lux, whose consistent poke and early lead put Zeus at a significant disadvantage. Whether or not BLG's jungler visited top lane was irrelevant. Zeus was already being hard punished in the 1v1 matchup. Eventually, BLG's jungler did show up and Gnar was killed. At this point, T1's top, mid, and bot lanes had all crumbled. Honor really spent the whole game trapped in a losing position with no way out. Now, let's talk about how the top lane got caught and killed. First, from the laning phase, we could already see that Lux had a massive lead. At this point, she was completely dominating Zeus's Gnar. Whether the jungler showed up or not didn't matter. Lux was bullying him regardless. If the jungler came, it was a guaranteed kill. If not, Zeus was still losing hard in the lane. It was already a significant loss by this point. Then, BLG's jungler arrived, and Gnar stood no chance. He had to go down. By this point, all three lanes for T1 had completely collapsed. It was a full-on disaster. And then T1 tried to swap lanes to get Rift Herald. Obviously, I know their plan was to grab one and escape as quickly as possible, but BLG was definitely prepared to contest. Lux had her ultimate ready, and BLG had already locked onto their targets. Braum was right in front of them, got hit by a Q, was knocked up, pinned against the wall, and was instantly killed. The damage was perfectly executed. Kyria didn't even hit level 5 yet, he was only level 4 at the time. This just goes to show how far behind T1 already was. The only good news from this fight was that T1 managed to sneak a Rift Herald. That's it. They got it, and they had to run immediately. At this point, BLG had such a commanding lead that they started rotating their lanes strategically. They moved Ashe mid to pressure Yasuo, while their support roamed top to put even more pressure on Gnar. Zeus, knowing he was about to get tower dived, tried to run. While he managed to escape with his life, the amount of experience he missed was substantial. This game was really a product of both poor BP decisions and in-game player mistakes. It was a complete failure on all fronts. By the 10-minute mark, T1 had no control over bot lane, mid lane was being pushed back, and top lane was getting destroyed. Even in this dire situation, T1 had no choice but to contest the Rift Herald because it was crucial. But here, BLG made another well-timed play. They teleported in and went straight for Sejuani, who got chunked down and had to burn her flash to escape. After she ran away, the objective was obviously uncontestable. At this point, T1 could only rely on some luck. Gumeyusi walked forward slowly, throwing out a Q, and miraculously managed to steal the Rift Herald. Honestly, Guma seems to have been blessed when it comes to stealing objectives. He's an absolute genius at it. Somehow he always gets them. But this was just a small consolation prize. They still had to drag the game out and hope for a turnaround later. Not long after, an opportunity seemed to arise. Rel made engage attempt, but her Q missed completely. She followed up with her W to stump forward, but that missed too. Congratulations, Rel. You whiffed 2 abilities in a row and then dismounted. This gave Gnar the perfect chance to capitalize. Zeus went all in, dealing massive damage. At the same time, Ashe could have disengaged and abandoned her support, but she got greedy. If I were playing Ashe, I would have immediately backed off and let the support die. But Ashe wanted to keep fighting without burning flash, no less, and got caught by Zeus's Gnar, who threw her into the wall, stunning 2 people at once. On top of that, Ashe's enchanted crystal arrow had been used just a moment too early, failing to achieve much impact. In the end, both Ashe and Rel died, and T1 finally secured a small window of opportunity for a comeback. Unfortunately, that momentum didn't last long. By 15:30, T1 made another critical mistake while trying to push mid lane. Remember, you can't rush to take a low health turret. That's exactly how things like this happen. BLG punished them hard, catching T1 and killing their players. It was an absolute disaster with no room for escape. BLG wasn't just winning fights, they were also winning objectives. Not only did T1 lose their mid-outer turret, but even their mid-inner turret was gone shortly after. The total value of this fight for BLG was enormous, easily a 5,000 gold swing. By the 17-minute mark, BLG had built an overwhelming lead. They began consolidating vision control around the top side, preparing to secure even more objectives. Sylas was given the space to pressure towers, but at this point, Bin on Lux got overly ambitious. He wanted to solo kill Faker's Yasuo. He had a dream. He threw out his ultimate, but he missed. If he had aimed just slightly better, he could have secured the kill without question. However, the problem here wasn't just Bin's misplay. BLG's focus was entirely on the left side of the map, and no one was in position to support Lux. Inevitably, Lux got caught and killed by T1's reinforcements. While BLG managed to trade Lux's life for a kill on Sejuani on the top side, it didn't really hurt their momentum. BLG still maintained their advantage. Suddenly, the camera panned back to the right side of the map, where Faker had narrowly escaped earlier. But even after getting away once, he still ended up dying. This time, it was because Ashe's volley Edgebu managed to snipe him through the wall. Faker had been looking at another part of the map when this happened and wasn't able to react in time. By 23 minutes, T1 had completely lost control of the game. With their outer towers gone and Baron in BLG's hands, there was no way for T1 to fight back. BLG continued to pressure T1, punishing every attempt to regain vision or contest objectives. The game was effectively over after BLG secured their second Baron, marking the end of a disastrous opening game for T1. T1's Game 1 draft was indefensible, and their in-game execution made things worse. However, I have to commend the players for keeping their composure despite the situation. For most, such a disastrous performance would be hard to recover from mentally. That wraps up today's analysis. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and share the video. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and goodbye.